Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Females Thriving Over 30 podcast. Today, we are on episode 2 of season 4, which again, it to me is still crazy that we are 4 seasons in, that every season that we're doing has so many episodes, and we have so many wonderful women that want to come and talk to us in our podcast. Today, and I mean, I always say the same thing, we have a very exciting guest, but every guest that we have is just very exciting person to talk to. So today we have Jade with us all the way from Bali. And I'm just going to let you know, where do I know Jade from? So interestingly enough, I know Jade from bodybuilding. We met when we were both competing at NPC, and I've been following her, even before we met in person. She's just a wonderful woman. And lately, she's been doing a lot of things talking about romanticizing your life. And if you don't know what this is, so basically, we're just going to dive into this super powerful concept of romanticizing your life. But this is not kind of like in the fairy tale sense of things, right? It's kind of like a radical act of self-love, presence, personal empowerment, kind of like, we live in a world that often tells women that we need to shrink or rush to do things or wait for perfect moments. And, we should be romanticizing every day, kind of like a way to reclaim our joy, create meaning, and see ourselves as the main character of our own story. So, I mean, I think Jade is going to be able to explain this much better. So I'm just going to introduce her to you guys and let her tell you a little bit more about herself. So, welcome, Jade. How are you?
Thank you for having me, and thank you everyone for listening. I'm so excited. As you said, it's one of those things you're always like, I'm so excited, but I actually really am really excited and grateful. So thank you.
So, quick intercept. I am going to close the window because
Oh, that's
it's so hot here in Madrid, but then I cannot hear anything because the cars are coming in. So if you see me sweat, that's because I have no air in my room.
It's fine. I'm in Bali, so
Yes,
standard. It's standard. And I think that's also the beautiful thing about life. Like, it doesn't have to be perfect, right? Especially when we're doing things or creating things, we're trying to even live this life of ours. Like, we, especially as women, have this expectation on us that we have to do things a certain way or it has to be perfect. And I think there's this beauty in the mess and the chaos and this realness of, we're all just trying our best sometimes and just trying to be ourselves. And the more we can lean into that and also be empowered to be like, hold on, I'm just going to fix this, or hold on, I need to do that, or oops, I made a mistake, or like kind of make fun of yourself in a way without shaming yourself. I think that's a really beautiful and powerful thing. So yeah, I love that. Close that window.
totally, totally agree. I mean, who knew I was already living my best life and romanticizing my life?
Yeah, no, but diving in.
Yes, yes, exactly. So, Jade, could you please introduce yourself to our listeners?
Yeah.
Because obviously not everybody knows you, and just
Mm-mm.
tell us about yourself.
Yeah, so like you said, we met so many years ago bodybuilding. But yeah, my name's Jade. I grew up in the UK and Ireland and then journeyed my way to London where, I was really into the whole fitness scene. It was when Instagram was booming. It was like right at the beginning when influencers were kind of becoming a thing. And I just kind of fell in love with fitness on my own sort of personal self-love journey slash like struggle with eating as so many people do. And I found fitness as a way to, reclaim those parts of myself that I had lost or, sort of damaged along the way. And, the more I shared that, the more, people found it interesting to relate to me. And just like I related to other people on social media, like yourself, like we were all these young little females kind of growing up and finding ourselves and finding out who we were. And a part of finding out who you are is trying all these different things and leaning into these different sort of desires and joys and trying things out. So yeah, after many years of living in London and bodybuilding and sort of sharing that journey online, which was such a cool chapter of life, I decided to move to Bali. And then it was in Bali that I really sort of started to uncover more about myself, like my life, like being a woman. I think that was the big thing. You go from being this very juvenile, young 20-year-old kind of figuring the world out. And then all of a sudden, like you're starting to go into your late 20s and 30s, and then you're really trying to understand who am I as a woman if I'm no longer that version of who I was. And so, I look back with such like compassion for my younger little
Yeah.
self, how she was just trying to find herself and discover what life was about. And she kind of did it a bit publicly, which was, I think it's great. It brought me a lot of opportunities and just like bodybuilding. And I also think those things in my past helped develop me to who I am now. But it really wasn't until I sort of landed here and started to unravel all of the pieces who I thought I was to actually kind of see, okay, who am I? And actually, what do I love? And what do I want to be without feeling the need to be anything? And so that's what sort of inspired this sort of new, I guess, found passion for the way I show up in the world and show up online in terms of rather than sharing about like bettering myself just in the gym, it's sort of like, how can I better myself in my life? And rather,
Yeah.
sharing what I eat in a day, it's like, what am I doing in the day that makes me feel the best version of myself, that connects me to myself? Because when we're living in this go, go, go state, or this sort of have to do, or, to-do list, or macro counting, or,
Yes.
just like work spreadsheet, whatever it is, we're so disconnected from what is our truth and what do we actually want to do and what actually makes us happy, or even to the point of what do I actually want to eat. And when I was
Yes.
able to like discern that and like really see it and split it apart, I realized how, as amazing as, all the fun competitions and fitness and that was, I was actually ignoring the inner me of, what do I actually want? Who do I want to be? All of those things. And so I started to explore that, and I found that then rather than people looking at me as like, oh, a fitness inspiration, it was more like, how are you so happy? You know,
Yeah.
how do you always have so much energy? Like, you seem different in the most beautiful way. And now I feel really like empowered to give women those tools and, you know, show them how they can look inwards and really discover who they are. And when you own who you are and you know who you are and you know what you like, what you don't like, what makes you happy, what you won't accept, like
Mhm.
it just makes you the most magnetic, powerful, confident version of you. And I think all women have that within them. It's just like we have to reclaim that, and that takes a
Yeah.
choice.
Absolutely. And do you feel like, because like when you started, like when we were talking about like me closing the window and all of that, it's like nothing needs to be perfect, blah blah blah. I feel like a few years ago, maybe like 5 years ago or so,
Yeah,
social media was dictating so much. Like you were seeing people's life, everybody was portraying their perfect view of their
yeah,
life, and then you feel that your life needs to be like that and you need to be perfect in everything like that, creating those
yeah,
kind of like anxiety and everything on like, oh my god, my life doesn't look at all like this person and this person. Whether when social media was not a thing, I feel like we were in exactly the position that you are in now, right?
yeah.
You know what you like, you love your inner self, and you are not looking for perfection in every single aspect of your life.
I feel like as women, it's like we've always kind of had this social conditioning of,
Yeah.
having to look a certain way. Maybe it was in
Hmm.
magazines or this, that we had these like expectations put on us. And then the boom of social media came out where there was the one side of all the women looking at people, sharing their lives, feeling like, God, my life looks nothing like that. And then there was
Hmm.
me on that side of it. And one version of me was trying to make my life look like that. But
Yeah.
also, I was kind of on the inside seeing all my friends who were these like, social media stars or influencers or people that people aspire to. And I'm looking at these people like, they don't know what they're doing. Their life isn't perfect. It's messy. And people were only kind of showing this one version of themselves online. I
Yeah.
think we're now in this place. I think it's transitioned where I feel like authenticity is sort of what's inspiring people more because it is more
Hmm.
relatable than aspirational. But
Absolutely.
I also found myself being in this place of, yes, life isn't perfect, but rather than sitting in the imperfection and showing up online being like, oh, my life's a mess, this is happening, that. It's like, okay, but what are you doing about it? Like, how can you
Hmm.
show up and show people, hey, my life's falling apart, but look, this is what I'm doing about it. And this is like what's helped me, or this is how I'm navigating this, for example,
Hmm.
heartbreak. And I found the more I showed up in that space of, hey, this is what I'm learning and this is what I've learned, people related to that and people wanted to hear it. And I think that's really empowering because we're actually helping and you're coaching whilst also seeing another woman as like, oh, you go through the same things that I go through, but somehow you've made it through the other side. And it's like that's
Yeah.
what I feel is really special.
Yeah, we feel like it's quite refreshing to be able to see that online nowadays because not
Yeah.
everybody, shows that part of themselves. I think
Nah.
we're still far away from everybody kind of like getting there. But
Yeah.
I love being able to see, as you say, people that are maybe struggling with something, but then showing how they are managing through it and seeing that,
Yeah.
you're not alone in certain things.
I also learned that like people, for whatever reason, love transformation, right? There's this real sort of thing that people will pay in for transformation, whether it's fitness, business, whatever it is, people do want to evolve. And so to then be an embodiment of that, and maybe someone knew me as this like fitness influencer who strived to be as little body fat as possible and like have abs and this and that, to then, throw that whole life away and just walk away from social media success and sponsorships and like I said, chiseled abs for something else. I think there's also a beauty in that, and showing people that you can transform your life. Like you're never stuck. Like whatever your reality is right now, it might be your current reality, but it's possible to completely change that. I think as I walked that path, it's like I wanted to clear that way and show people that no matter where you are in life, no matter who you think you are, who you thought you were, or what you did, it doesn't mean you're that version of you forever. You can be whoever you want to be, but you have to be the one to see that and visualize that version of you and know who that version of you is, and then make those choices and say, okay, if that's the best version of me, what do I need to be doing to be that version of her? Or if I want to move across the world and become a Pilates teacher, or have a podcast or whatever it is, okay, like already start acting like that is you, because it is. You just have to like take that first step.
Yes. Yeah. And
Yeah.
so for everybody listening, Jade also has a podcast. It's called Strip to the Soul, and you have to listen to it.
Oh, thank you.
I love it. I love it. And there is like so many great episodes and so many lessons in there for all of us to learn. But so what inspired you to start the podcast and sharing your, yeah, like your life completely, like your
Yeah.
challenges, your mistakes, your successes, like what inspired you?
Well, when I moved to Bali, I decided to go on this big sort of journey of, very cliche Bali. It's very eat, pray, love. Don't get me wrong. Like, I know I'm that stereotype of like, who am I if I'm not all the things I thought I was? And so that involved me, like, we're talking, this was 6 years ago. Okay. So I started like going to these breathwork ceremonies. I was going to these like women's circles, these like empowerment things, just like kind of like going into these spaces and places that felt really uncomfortable for me because I was so not used to like looking inwards. And I started going to
Mhm.
all these like workshops and weird kind of woo woo healing things that, created a space and environment for you to look inwards and look at yourself. And the more I did that, the more I realized how disconnected I was from myself, and how I had all these layers of, trauma from the past, or things that had happened, or pain, or heartbreaks, or, just like things I'd pushed away. And so I decided to go on this journey of like, okay, I'm going to strip everything back and really find out who I am inside. Like who is my soul? Like who actually am I if I'm not the person who's showing up online, if I'm not the bodybuilder, if I'm not XYZ? And any of us can relate to this, especially if you're in a job, maybe you're a CEO, maybe you're, not even on Instagram, maybe it could be like you're a mother, you're all of these different things, but at the end of the day you have a role, and then you have who you are. And I decided to just be like, okay, let's figure it out. And when you go on that journey, it requires you to be so vulnerable with yourself, to be able to look at those parts of yourself without shame, without judgment. And I think that's the rawest, most purest version of us. And I had this sort of realization along that journey of, uncovering that about myself. If I was like that, how many people around me are also operating with this sort of mask on, or this version of themselves that they want to be perceived as? Maybe it is this perfectionist, maybe it's someone who looks a certain way or achieves a certain amount. And it's not just women, it's men too, especially in, like, the workspace. Like they have
Yeah.
to come across as, this certain kind of way to, gain respect. And it started me on this sort of self-inquiry of like, okay, well, what would happen if we all were a little bit more real with each other? And the only way you can be real with someone else is to first get real with yourself. And how you can only really get to know someone as deep as you've gotten to know yourself, because that's as far as you're going to allow someone in. So we're
Yeah.
all operating at this space and place where we've only let ourselves get to know each other, like get to know ourselves this
Yes.
much, because we're too afraid to look at all this shit, right? That's all that someone's going to get to know of us. And so the deeper I went on this journey of like looking at my shadows, looking at the things I had done, the person I'd become, the mistakes I'd made, the things that had happened to me, and how they might have potentially shaped me as a person and who I was, the more I looked at that, the more I was able to make choices to realize, oh, that trauma from my childhood doesn't have to be the version of myself that I am now. But first, to actually know that, I have to see it. And I have to
Yeah.
almost befriend that version of myself. And so that was what kind of inspired the podcast, of showing up really raw, really real, like in that messy, in the imperfect, and showing how I sort of transmuted different pains, or how I learned different lessons, or how I made these mistakes as women make, like,
Mm-hmm.
especially when it comes to dating, especially when, I think most of us, unless we got lucky, we've dated like a red flag. And, rather than pointing the finger, it was kind of like, okay, well, what within me chose that, and what did I learn? Or when, life hits the fan as it does and something goes wrong, okay, how did I react, and what can I do better next time? And then
Mm-hmm.
just putting a kind of, platform out there to what I was already navigating internally. And what the funny thing is, it was such a journey of self to even get to that point of, you know, not having any shame of, needing to be a certain way or look a certain way, and being comfortable and confident to show up despite, things not being perfect. And
Yeah.
that was that sort of radical empowerment I wanted to show to women. And fun little story, I actually used to be a stripper, and I don't think anyone really knows that about me, because I had so much shame around it. And
Mm-hmm.
what was really interesting was like, oh, it's funny that I'm the one who has this judgment on myself, right? I'm
Mm-hmm.
the one who's
Yeah.
perceiving myself a certain way. And so when I started stripping back those layers, like the irony is, like, as a stripper, you would take off your clothes.
Absolutely.
The more I strip back the layers, like when, you're a dancer, you're fully nude. And
Mm-hmm.
being vulnerable also means standing there in front of someone as yourself, not pretending to be someone else, not hiding under makeup or certain clothes, or, appearing a certain way, or having a certain
Yeah.
filter on your photo. It's like, this is who I am. And can you love me for that? And can you like me for that? And also being okay if they don't.
Yes,
So that's
absolutely.
what inspired it.
I mean, I think all the things that you talked about, vulnerability, and just, I think that's why I really loved listening to your podcast, because I feel like, as you said, there is that kind of like taboo of like when you are meeting someone or you're getting to know someone, that you only talk about surface level topics and
Hmm.
everything like that. You never go really deep in. And lately, I have been actually being more honest with the people that I've known for years, right? And I
Yeah.
started like telling them like, okay, everything that has been going wrong in my life
Yeah.
lately, right? And I've started learning who actually are the real friends and who are fake. right?
Yeah,
Because when you're
it's a
telling them
really
those
easy
things,
way to discern, you discern who's for you and who's not for you. Because if you show up as your real self and someone judges you for that, or someone creates this perception, it gives you the empowered choice to be like, do I really want to have this
exactly.
person in my life? Or, are they really for me, or are they for a version of me? And I feel like I was very lucky being in Bali that people were very open-minded, very transparent, very like open, just, for this raw, honest, real
Mhm.
conversation. And I definitely feel like it attracts a lot of people on that journey. But at the end of the day, the way that we're going to connect and the way we're going to, have these soul friendships or these people in our lives that are actually, allies, it is by being real. And so it takes one woman at a time kind of paving that way. And I feel like I'm especially empowered by females, especially because we are the ones that often have, sisterhood wounds with each other. We
Yes.
have jealousy. Like, what's so funny is
Yeah.
like, especially in bodybuilding, like it's this fierce competition with each other. It's like, who's prettier, who's more successful, who's leaner, like, real. And when I start to look, I'm like, we're meant to help each other out as women, right?
Yes.
And
Yeah.
we're all these mirrors of each other. Whatever I've gone through, you've probably gone through your own version of that same story. Our stories are
Hmm.
going to be completely different, but we're still going to have similar themes: heartbreak, troubled
Yeah.
eating, money struggles, stress, pressure, all these different
Hmm.
things.
Hmm.
And so the only way someone's going to feel seen is if you also hold up that mirror and you're like, me too.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think like being vulnerable as well helps us heal in a way. But I think like
Yeah.
we're so far away from still people seeing that, right? Like recently there's been like this thing going on online with this influencer, a Spanish influencer. She's been going through a really difficult fertility journey. She's been doing IVF and she's been sharing like every step of the way, right? So she's announced that she got pregnant as soon as it
Mhm.
happened, right? And everybody started criticizing her for it. Then she lost the baby, and then everybody criticizing her and blamed her for sharing it everything so early and made her feel bad about being vulnerable and
Mm,
sharing
mm.
her story, trying to help other women that might be going through the same thing, right? And I'm just saying, like, why is always women as well making
That's the
those
thing that
comments?
tearing each other down. I learned that I think at a young age because of social media. Like I would, if I was skinny, I was too skinny. If I gained weight, I was too fat. And I had this real sort of projection from other women, especially. And it
Mhm.
was like one minute I was inspiring them, and next minute I was being shamed. And the thing that was so hard for me was at the time I would focus on the negatives so much more than the positives. Every 10 amazing comments, there was one, and it would tear me down. But actually, it
Mhm.
was such a gift in hindsight because it was the thing that really taught me to let go of caring what other people think. It's at the end of the day, if we care what someone else thinks, we're the one doing that to ourselves. We're the one
Mhm.
allowing someone else's words or opinions affect us. I had this realization of just because that's someone else's thought, it doesn't make it my truth. But the only way I'm going to know that for sure and be able to discern that is if I know my truth. So if
Yeah.
I know what's true for me, I know what's real, I know what's coming from my heart, and I know where it's coming from. Someone else's opinion, it doesn't even touch me. But when I'm unsure of myself, when I don't know my why, when I don't know why I'm doing something, what I'm voicing, what I stand for, my values, my morals, my roots aren't stable. So I feel like the deeper you go within yourself, the more your roots grow, the more stable you are. So when these things are happening around you, they really don't get to you because you're so sure of yourself and your why. And when, these people, I have compassion for them now because I would look and be like, God, I would never, ever go and leave hate on someone's
Mm.
content. But these people, it's like I realize the only way that they're going to learn is if they're like taught or shown love, or they're kind of given a reason to look inwards as to why am I doing that. And at the end of the day, that's an inner job. Why someone would project that, and most projections are someone else's own insecurity or
Yes.
jealousy, or you would never try and tear down someone below you, right? Because you're already
Yeah.
above them. And
Exactly. Yeah.
so that sort of, for me, I feel sharing that message of female empowerment and just like seeing each other as like a sister, as you would treat your best friend, no matter even if they're a stranger or not.
Mm-hmm.
But it does take choice of like looking inwards and being like, why am I that way? Because I had an issue. I would be really sharp, really angry. Like I could be really quick-tongued and really sassy. And I actually had to look at myself and say, where does that come from? Why am I that
Yeah.
way? And when you start that internal inquiry, you actually start to get to know yourself. And then I feel like those people who are leading hate, if they actually looked inwards, they would realize they're probably deeply unhappy with their life or themselves or their body. So what are they doing? They're trying to project that hurt onto someone
Mm-hmm.
else. So that's why I'm all for just like constantly trying, if it's like just one woman at a time, just helping them, love their life a bit more. Because if you love your life so much, you don't have the energy to hate on anyone else's
Exactly.
life. So it's like if I can help women love their life a little bit more and love themselves a little bit more, there's no room for hate. There's no room for tearing people down because you are so obsessed with your own life and yourself. And I think, yeah, I think that when you're obsessed with your life and making your life amazing, you don't care what anyone else is doing. You're just living your best life.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And again, I think that that comes back again to, and again, I know that I say this a lot, but obviously as a
Yeah.
millennial,
Yeah.
I know what it is growing up without social media, and I know what it is
Yeah.
having social media in it. And just exactly what you said, like, I think we were happy with our lives because we were not really trying to compete with anybody else. So now that
Mm-mm.
we are able to see their version of everybody's lives, now is when we need to do that internal work that you just said, to
Yeah.
change what we don't like and be happy with the life that we're living, so then we do
Yeah.
not get, as you said, like sassy or like sharp comments and just being mean
Jealous.
to other people.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, because I feel like there's always going to be someone's life that might be better than yours, more
hmm,
ideal. But then it's that real reminder of, well, I'm also living someone else's dream life. And, you know,
absolutely.
I'm living a life that someone would love to have, and I don't like to play the comparison game because, we all have our own, struggles. I kind of sometimes would feel guilty if I was, feeling sad or going through a hard time because I realized I was so much more privileged than someone else. So it's
Yes.
not to, shame yourself or ignore your emotions, but also recognizing that someone's always going to be richer, someone's always going to have a better life, skinnier, more, whatever it is. And so the more you can kind of be like, whatever about that, and the more you can take what you have and make it the best for you, I think that's when we came back to romanticizing your life, like that is ultimately it. Like, how do you take what you have in your life? How do you, navigate whatever you're navigating and still make the most of it? Because life isn't easy. Like, life isn't perfect. I'm sure someone would click on my social media and be like, oh, she's got this perfect life, this, that, and the other. And at the same time, it's like, no, I was going absolutely through it. And how I went through it and how I cultivated happiness within, I guess like what you would call like a low season, like dark night of the
Hmm.
soul, like storm. It's
Yeah.
like actually those things in life, they don't stop, right? You're always going to go through whatever version of like struggle, right? I think it's that beautiful cyclical nature of life, of these beautiful highs and these really, deep lows that teach you things. And
Yeah.
how at one period in your life it might almost destroy you, and the next time it completely rebuilds you and
Yeah.
reshapes you. And yeah, I think that's what's so special, that you could be having the worst time ever and equally be making the absolute most of your life. And that's
Yeah.
what's so paradoxical, and kind of that beauty of this duality of life. You have the highs, you have the
Yeah.
lows. So when it was like I had just had my heart broken, I'd lost my job, I was on my ass, I was like, I had no money, I was like, okay, life isn't the best right now. Like life is not, it's not giving. We were,
Yeah.
we were at my version of rock bottom, right? I was like, no money, no income, no heartbroken. It was just a bad time. And
Yeah.
I was just living my best life. I was living my best life. I was, just doing all the things that made me happy, laughing every day, and I was finding joy in the mess of it all. And I think that that's possible for everyone, but it's how we see it. I could have viewed it as like the worst thing in the world, but instead I was
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, this is an opportunity for me to do something different. This is an
Mm-hmm.
opportunity for me to meet someone new. This is a beautiful time for me to have a break. Was I worried and freaked out that I didn't have money? Of course, natural primal instinct. But I was like, I had to have this unwavering faith that, well, it's possible for me, right? It's, of course, I'm
Yes.
going to get a new job. Like, I had to
Yeah.
really reprogram my mindset to focus on what could be versus what
Mhm.
was.
Yeah. And I think it's we should also remind everybody like it's okay to feel down
Yeah.
for a short period of time. Don't feel guilty for
Yeah.
that because we're all allowed to do that. But then just think about like what else is amazing in your life and what else is coming your way, right? Like
Yeah.
for me, I've been having like the toughest time this year. I'm having fertility issues. I have had like a second round of IVF. It didn't work. I just gone through all of the different injections and stuff. And for a moment, I really felt this was over,
Hmm.
right? Like my ultimate dream was over. But I'm now changing my mindset and starting seeing like it's going to happen at some point. I don't need to rush it. I don't need to put any more pressure on me. I just need
Mm,
to enjoy the rest of the things that are wonderful in my life, that are working out, and do what I love to then be able to have my body in the best stage for the next time
hmm.
that I try for it to work. But
Yeah.
yeah, this could literally have thrown me off completely and just made me be in a completely depressive state, right?
That's the power of our mind. And it is true. Sometimes you do really hit those stages and it's like you can't see the way out. And it's
Mhm.
really interesting. I had a shaman from Colombia say to me, change the channel. And I was like, huh?
Ooh.
And I was like really focused on the negative. I was really focused on the things that had happened to me, the pain that I felt, like the trauma I had endured. They were like, change the channel. Like, like, change it. Like, it's not to ignore it. It's there. It exists. See it, look at it, and then like change it, right? Change the channel.
Mhm.
What are you now looking at? What are you now looking for? And so like rather than say, for example, what you're navigating, it's like it's going to be painful, it's going to be hard, there's going to be like shame for yourself, like why, but rather than having those feelings, it's like, okay, that can exist there and I can see it and I recognize that, but also what can I do right now? And wow, I'm so proud of myself for being so strong for even going down that route in the first place, or for being, you know, so you love yourself enough to put yourself first and make that investment and make those sacrifices. And then what are those empowered choices that you can make to then move forward? And you can apply this to anything like a job loss, a heartbreak. It's like, I thought I was going to marry a guy last year. You think this is your future, it's what you dreamed of, like, and then it all falls apart and it crumbles and it's like you feel like you've got no control, but it's like
Yes.
actually that self-love that you can have for yourself is what really will get you through. I feel like that is the foundation
Yes.
for any journey of, I love myself enough to know I am worthy of this, I know it's possible for me, and it's going to happen. When? I don't know. I don't need to know. I have to
Mhm.
trust in something, you know so deep within or above, whatever it is, just this real trust with yourself that that it's possible for you. I always say those dreams aren't planted in your heart for a reason, and
Mhm.
it's interesting how you can sometimes have dreams and you think they're dreams, right? And like, say for example, when I was younger, I had a dream I'm going to be an IFBB pro, right? Get a little bit
Yeah.
older, you're like, that dream does not resonate with me anymore. I didn't actually need that dream, it's fine. Same with a man. You could have thought that was your man, all of a sudden you're like, thank God I'm not with that man, right? It was like the best thing to not be with that man, because and then it's also the same with the journey that you're on. It's like when that happens for you, it's gonna, that's why needed to happen now, because I had to
Yeah.
learn that about myself. I had to build that trust within myself, or I had to go on that journey within me so then I can then help other women. But sometimes you don't see, I call it a blessing, like a blessing and a
Mm.
lesson. You don't
Oh, I
see the
like that.
blessing. Yeah, it's like a blessing and a lesson because it's hard at the time because you're trying to navigate something that's unclear. But then in hindsight, you're able to look at it and be like, that was the biggest blessing because when it does finally work out, you'll see it. You know that saying, it's like when you meet the right person, you understand why it didn't work out with anyone else. And
Yes.
then I
Yeah.
feel like, when that time comes of, like, say, starting a family or whatever it is, it's like, oh, now we're in the place. If that had happened before when I initially wanted it, we actually wouldn't have had XYZ. And I think that reminding ourselves of that every day is really important.
Yeah. I love that. I
Mm.
love the blessing. I'm gonna start applying that all the
It's a,
time. All the time. And you have a little, it's like a little business. They romanticize your reality. Can you tell us a little bit more about it in case like any women that is listening to the podcast wants to start
yeah.
following you and just join in the movement?
Yeah, I just was like, wanting to somehow show and share with people what it is that I've done in my life that I know has worked. Like, how have I had this mindset shift? How have I changed my reality? I feel like I think something and I make it happen, right? I have this real
Yeah.
just sort of like way of like, oh, I'm going to do this, and then it happens. And it was more people saying, you reinvent yourself so well, or like you just like, you say you're going to do something, it happens. I have an idea, it's done. I say I want to go somewhere, I'm there, right? And I
Mm-hmm.
realized it was like, oh, this is because of all the things that I've learned and applied in terms of, really understanding my self-worth. I think that was the foundation of it all. Like
Yes.
understanding my self-worth, like really understanding like how I reclaim that self-worth within myself, how I build that self-love. And then when I build that self-love and I have that self-worth that, nothing around me can shake me, I'm able to create my reality to be whatever I want it to be. And I have a real clear vision of what that is. Because if your self worth isn't there, if you don't feel worthy of that dream life, you can say you might want it, but at the end of the day, if you don't feel like it's possible for you, it's really not going to be possible for you. So I really wanted to help women find that self-worth within themselves, that they feel like they are worth the dream man, they are worth the family, they are, it's just possible for them
Yeah.
because they know they deserve it and they believe it as well. It's not even a question, because I think that's the big thing. It's like someone can say they want something, but do they actually feel like it's possible for them? And the answer probably
Mhm.
would be no. Like, someone might say, oh, I want to be, have X, Y, they want to be a CEO, have my own company, social media famous. But it's like, can you actually visualize yourself as that person? Is that possible? You wake up, is that your reality? And most of the time it's not. And so it's like I wanted to bring people on that journey of like a little container of just like teaching and showing and these daily practices that we can do that will actually build that within you. And I know it works because I've done it
Yeah.
myself, and
You've done
I've
it.
really to be like, I love the woman I am. I'm so proud of me and I wouldn't change me. I
That's
think
amazing.
that that's a point in place in life where you're like, wow, like that is self-love, when you wouldn't change a single thing about yourself in the best kind of way. Like I think we can always, work on ourselves, but to be in the space and place where you're like, I love who I am because I know who I am and I know my
That
heart
should
and I
be
know my soul.
the goal for
Yeah,
everybody.
that they wouldn't change a single thing about their selves, or even if their life isn't exactly how they want it, they know that, oh, I'm just a stepping stone away, I'm almost there, like I just need to keep on being this version of me and then it's going to happen.
Yeah.
And it yeah, it's definitely, it has to be built and it has to be cultivated. It's not something that can be handed to you, because I have friends who are super rich, super this, super that, and they're deeply unhappy inside. And to turn around and be like, I'm so happy with who I am. I think I just wish that for all women. So if I can just
Yeah.
help a woman in any way, that's just the dream.
I'm pretty sure like you've helped so many women already that are going to be listening to
Mm,
this podcast, and they're going to go to listen to
mm.
your podcast and just going to follow your romanticize your reality, because we need that switch. We need to
Yeah.
start looking ourselves and loving ourselves,
Loving,
and that
love,
should be
exactly
our
that,
goal.
loving. And that is what it is. Exactly. It's like if you love yourself, you treat yourself like the best person ever. You put yourself first. Like you want your world to be magical. And they're the little things, like they're the foundational little things that you do that make your life so special. It's like stop waiting for the holiday. Stop waiting for this dream man. Stop waiting for the promotion. It's like your world right now can already be incredible, and you can wake up and feel like you're giving yourself princess treatment. Like, why are we waiting for a man to give us princess treatment when we can give it to ourselves? And then when someone else does it, it's amazing, right? It's like you've already like filled your cup up so much that everything else is just like overflow. And so, yeah, I
Mhm.
hope that I guess the inspiration behind it is showing people how to do that, then in turn, becoming a better woman, and then like attracts like. So yeah, I'm super,
Yes.
super grateful.
Yeah. We need to stop like relying on other people to make us happy and
Mm-mm.
start making ourselves happy and
Yeah.
changing the things that we don't like. And as you said, why cannot we buy ourselves flowers like Miley Cyrus said,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, it
Exactly.
was like COVID, when a lot of things were taken away from us, or we had like
Mm-hmm.
to work with what we had, or we were in these situations. It's the same when, I lost my job last year and I was going through a breakup. I had to work with what I had. My reality was different from what I had known, and I had to create a new reality, a new way of living. And so it's like we can do that every day when we wake up. We can make that choice to look at what we have and be like, okay, how am I making the absolute most of this? And when you have that mindset of like, how can I make the most of my day? Even when you're waking up to work an 8-hour shift, even when you're busy or you're a mom, there's still things that you can do to show yourself love. And what's that when the more you can show yourself love, the more it sets the standard for how other people treat you. And then I think that's what then brings you the job, the
Mm-hmm.
relationship, whatever it is, because
Absolutely.
you've set that standard for yourself.
Yeah. I mean, I absolutely loved this conversation.
Yeah.
As I said, like, I think feeling vulnerable and just opening up with someone else really helps you heal. I think, like, for
Mm,
me, this podcast has helped me a lot as well, being able to talk to other women, getting to go like deep, deep, deep in their stories and knowing like, you're going through exactly the same thing that I'm going through. Maybe not exactly the same topic, but it can be applied to what I am going through.
yeah.
And I really appreciate you coming here and opening up and showing us what we should be doing to romanticize our lives. I know that we
Mm.
should all be applying absolutely every single thing that you said. Everybody, make sure that you go listen to the Strip to the Soul podcast and then you follow Jade in all of her social media because it's literally life changing.
Thank you, Angel. No, I'm blessed. And, it's one of those things, it's like you're paving the way for people and for
Hmm.
women and to show up. And, I think there's a real beauty in that. And it does just take one woman at a time, one woman.
Yeah.
And then, the stronger you are, the stronger we are together. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, I just wanted to see you and really just honor that within you as well.
Well, thank you so much for coming, Jade. And
Thank you,
thank you,
guys.
everybody, for listening to another episode of the podcast. Please make sure that you follow us on social, that you like this podcast, that you leave us a review, because that will really help us to be able to reach even more women out there. So, see you soon in the next episode of the Female Surviving Over 30 podcast. Bye.
Bye.